Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Palace Confidential dedicated to royal fashion. We've put together some of our favourite clips from the past couple of years where our experts talk about the royals and the clothes they wear. Just quickly though, before we start, a reminder to like and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel for more great royal content brought to you every week. And let us know below what you think of this roundup. If you want to see more of our experts talking about royal fashion, then tell us. And tell us also what or who you want to see us discuss. Right, well, let's start with some controversy. Why not? The day one fashion writer caused a big stir online for calling the Princess of Wales a disappointment for how she wears jewellery. Here, Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths explain why they disagree.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by these comments. I don't know about you. I thought they were a bit harsh. I really like the way Catherine mixes up those kind of high street, those £15 accessorised buys she gets with the really priceless gems that they've got hidden away at the vaults at Buckingham Palace. I think that's quite relatable. So I think to criticise her for that was pretty unfair.
I mean, she's notoriously, Charlotte, always really mixed up high-end, low-end, hasn't she?
Yeah, always. And she uses her jewellery as a chance to expose little-known brands to her celebrity. So she's made a lot of brands famous by wearing some random pair of earrings that we've never heard of before, and then they instantly sell off the shelves. And then, you know, what does Susie expect us to be doing? Sort of washing up in her marigolds with, like, sort of diamonds hanging out of her ears from the royal collection, you know?
I think I would if I was royal.
Yeah,
minus the marigolds.
Not think, Jo, I know you would. But I think that's a really good point, Charlotte. There's a company in Wales called Spells of Love that I've been in touch with over the years, and when Catherine went on an early visit to Wales, she wore one of her pairs of earrings, and the owner of this little company had no idea that she was going to do it, and suddenly, you know, her website started to go into overdrive, and you know, these earrings were selling out as fast as they could restock
changes
them.
their lives, these designers.
And she emailed me and said, thank you so much for featuring it, because you don't know what that means to a little business like me. It has literally changed the profile of my business. You know, my little Welsh business is now a recognised global business. And I think, you know, wearing the grand jewels is great and it's fun and they're amazing, but you lose... To do that all the time, you lose little things like that at your peril.
And I think she should be sparing as well, because when the Princess of Wales has to dazzle for, say, a state occasion, she needs to dazzle with sort of big jewels on. And if she's sparing about how often she does that, then, you know, it makes it more impactful when she does, I think.
100%.
It's so interesting, isn't it? It must be incredible to have to walk out of the front door knowing that everybody in the world has an opinion on what you're wearing at any given time. That's the lot of the princess, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is why I think she shows quite strength of character. That I don't think she's ever been swayed by that at all. That she's worn what she feels comfortable and what she feels elegant in. And yeah, we have seen her style change. You know, do you remember all those Zara Reese dresses that she first wore meeting the Obamas and those early engagements? And we have definitely seen a change in that.
She's gone more upmarket.
100%. I mean, you'll spot that more than I think any of us, Jo, given your kind of fashion editor experience. I think, you know, we've definitely seen that, but I think she's done it at her own pace.
Yeah.
And maybe the way the clothes have got grander, but the jewellery is a way to just keep it a bit more real.
Do you think Susie... I'm doubtful that Susie meant it as some sort of like grave dig, and more as a fashion editor, we just like to see pretty things all the time. And I think it was more like a tongue-in-cheek, I just want to see the...
But she said that
finery.
Kate doesn't have joy in her heart when she wears this big, you know, big, fashionable, amazing jewellery. But I think she probably does have joy. I think she always looks a bit kind of pleased to be wearing this stuff when she does get a chance to wear it. So I slightly disagree with her there.
Yeah, how do you show joy?
Very good point.
And if Kate wore too much bling, we'd probably end up criticising her for being too bling and going too Meghan Markle, dare I say it, and spending far too much on her outfits every day, because she's got to find that balance where she's still a princess of the people at the same time.
And that's where we come up with this. People always saying that she's recycling outfits when she's just doing the normal thing that people wear with clothes. You just wear your outfits more than once.
For a royal fashion special, we brought in designer Amanda Wakeley, who has worked with many members of the royal family over the years. Here, she and Rebecca discuss the fashion rules, the King's wardrobe, and the difference between Catherine and Meghan.
Yes, and God bless Princess Anne, who still wears the same clothes that she wore 30, 40 years ago.
Well,
And
she
shows us
doesn't
the
like waste.
power of recycling as well. Yes, there are. I mean, people do expect the royal family to look a certain way. I mean, I always think the late Queen Elizabeth is the most brilliant example of that. I think there's very few people in the world that you could put one or two items of their clothing in a picture and people would know instantly who it was. You know, the Queen was the hat, the handbag, and, you know, a kind of a block colour. Maybe Marilyn, her dress as well. I can't really think of anybody else that was so iconic throughout her life, you know, even at the time she died. And there are certain standards, and the Queen, I think, knew how to make things work. And I remember writing a piece several years ago about this, talking with one of her regular couturiers, and they told me how they would go to either John Lewis or Peter Jones, to the big famous department stores, and buy these little lead weights from the haberdashery shop and sew them into the lining of her dresses so they never blew up, and she always looked very decorous. And, you know, those are tricks that are continued to this day, I think. You know, the Queen had a good sense of fashion. She wasn't obsessed by it, she wasn't defined by it, but she used it to her advantage.
And she knew what role it played in her role as a royal, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. She's this, when you see her in the flesh, she was this tiny lady, really tiny, so petite, and yet she commanded such presence, and part of that was the way she dressed and the way she looked. And you know, little things like in her evening dresses, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, asking for maybe a flower or a colour of the country that she was visiting or hosting to be incorporated in it. You know, she used it very cleverly.
Let's talk about the royal men for a moment. And Amanda, Charles probably in his younger days was sometimes criticised as being a bit fusty, a bit stuffy, a bit old-fashioned, but in his new role, in his new grandfather of the nation role, he seems to be sort of like rocking a fefew well-cut suits.
Absolutely, and what I love is that those aren't brand spanking new suits. He rewears and rewears. He rewore his late father's camel coat. I thought that was such a lovely tribute. And also it was a beautiful coat. Why does that have to get relegated? And I love the fact that he was stepping into his father's shoes because he was becoming the king, but I thought that was a really beautiful tribute. Interestingly, I was interviewing David Gandy for my podcast the other day, and I said, "Who's your style icon?" And he said, "The King."
Wow, really?
Yes.
Really? So Mr. Dolce & Gabbana
exactly
worships the style of the King. Now, before Charles, we had Philip, Rebecca, who was also, you know, he was a sharp dresser, very, very natty, as Amanda says, but neither William or Harry seemed that bothered. I think Harry even looked like he was wearing Meghan's jacket at Beyonce the other night.
Oh, Jo, you are. I mean, look, I think certainly William approaches it in a kind of, you know, perfunctory way, like he knows what he's comfortable in. He knows he looks smart in certain
It's
occasions.
a bit of a Mark Zuckerberg thing, isn't it, where if I've just got a uniform and I'll stick to it.
Yeah, and you know, it is, you know, a formal suit when he needs to. It's the kind of the shirt and the jumper and the chinos and the kind of suede lace-up shoes. But it, you know, it does the job it needs to be done. Well, I think we've already seen a real evolution there. I mean, remember the young Kate that we used to see in the Reese dresses and the wrap dresses when she started off. I think famously she met President Obama wearing a kind of high street Reese dress, and there was the whole thing about the Kate effect and selling out. And I think we've seen a slow but subtle move into more high-end fashion, you know, a more polished and more refined look. But she can still bring out the fun, casual stuff for when the occasion, you know, demands. And I think for me, there was a real, on a fashion level, stop in your tracks moment, which for me was the coronation, when she got out of into Westminster Abbey wearing that amazing cape without her tiara, with the headdress on. She just looked like a queen in waiting to me. I think it was so elegant, so polished, so regal. I thought, she's got it.
And the poise was phenomenal too. She was really owning that role, wasn't she?
Absolutely nailed it. And then the gorgeous little mini-me Charlotte wearing a kind of, you know, homage to her mother's outfit. I mean, they just looked picture perfect.
I think one of my favourite Catherine moments was a boring old school drop-off morning when she took. I think it was Charlotte's first day at school, and she just looked radiant in quite a normal midi dress, and it was, I don't know, it was stunning.
But also, doesn't that also talk about the power of her smile, which is, it just lights up a room. And I think she's one of those women with the most beautiful hair, beautiful face, but her smile is just that megawatt.
It's incredible, isn't it? Now, Amanda, you've also had your designs worn by the Duchess of Sussex. What do you like about her style? I mean, was more accustomed, I think, to being in the public eye from an earlier age, wasn't she?
Definitely, because with her acting career, she was very used to walking the red carpet and all of those paps absolutely in her face, it's quite an affront when that happens, that sort of 1,000 flashbulbs going off in your face. You sort of never really get used to it. But I think she'd had a lot more experience of that. And I think she really had evolved her own style before becoming part of the royal family, and which was, I would almost describe her royal dressing as sort of stealth wealth. It was a very understated chic, and you know, with quite a modern twist to it, and sort of pretty monochrome, and not loads of colour. She was, you know, often reached for the creams and the ivories.
Well, she talked about that, didn't she, in interviews, Rebecca, where she said that Meghan often said she felt restricted and had to be quite sombre and receding with her colours, and she felt quite restricted in what she had to wear as a royal.
And I don't really understand that,
no,
actually, because you know, there might be a message come down saying, yeah, actually, it's the Prime Minister's wife said recently, I think, in an interview, that, you know, it was made clear to her that the Queen was wearing blue on that day, and, you know, she might want to wear similarly, but it's never dictated, apart from maybe a hat, for example.
Or tights.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
The tights really upset Meghan, didn't they? To be honest, on a day like today, I wouldn't want to wear tights.
But I've never really understood that, because, you know, the Queen was the epitome of bold colour, and actually the Queen was never the kind of person that would think, I want to be the centre of attention. She just knew, because she was our monarch and head of state, I will be the centre of attention. So she was confident enough not to have to say, and I don't want you to outshine me. In fact, she wanted her granddaughters-in-law, both of them, all of them, to be able to hold their own on the stage and to feel confident. So I've never really understood those comments.
Do either of you see a marked change in Meghan's style since she exited the firm?
I mean, I have, definitely, in terms of a couple of the kind of gold dresses that she's worn, you know, with the kind of daring cut-out details, you know, a red dress that maybe she wouldn't have felt comfortable wearing as a royal. I don't know about you, Amanda.
Yes, I agree. There's the sort of the sexiness is creeping back in, where she would have worn those type of dresses on the red carpet previously in her previous life. Definitely, that is sort of making an entrance.
But I don't see that in a negative way. Again, you know, this kind of suggestion that she was constrained as a member of the royal family, because we all dress appropriate for our jobs and the situation. It's just the way we operate as a society. I wouldn't go into my office wearing an evening dress. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable about showing my shoulders in the office, because I'm, you know, portraying a professional image. So I wouldn't see that as a negative. I would just, you know, think it as dressing appropriate for the occasion. And
presumably now Meghan can also enjoy commercial relationships with fashion brands that none of the royals can. Do you think that we'll start to see that?
Well, I think we definitely have started to see that. You know, there's a lot more of her faves included in the handbags, and maybe slightly more obviously on her arm as she's walking past the cameras.
I can't remember what that was all
that
about,
was to do with kind of, was it mental health and emotions and stress? You know, we're starting to see, I would argue, probably more product placement.
Yes,
right.
Than she was before. Whereas I think, you know, certainly with regard to the Princess of Wales, she's quite, you know, quite broad in her fashion choices. And
She is, and she shares her, if you want to say, favours out, because the power of when she wears something is huge for a brand. And so, you know, I love the way she picks and chooses from the high street, and then we'll revert back to Alexander McQueen and Jenny Packham, who both do the most beautiful job for her in the sort of perfect, modern, fashionable, regal, timeless. These are pieces that she can wear and rewear, which she does, and I think that's a really strong and important message.
As discussed before, Princess Anne is known as the master of rewearing her outfits, keeping some for decades, literally. Here's Rebecca English with more on that.
She was wearing on her engagements, I think it was on Tuesday, sorry, this week has been pretty busy, I'm trying to remember what happened on which day, that she was wearing a very distinctive purple check coat that the Queen wore in 2010, I think it was. Now, I spoke to the palace and they tried to, it's quite funny, they tried to speak to Princess Anne's dresser for me, but she only works part-time because Princess Anne really gets her own stuff together, and so they couldn't actually, you know, couldn't actually pin anyone down. So we're not quite sure if they had the same coat or if it was the Queen's coat. And Princess Anne was quite frankly too busy working to answer any calls. But, you know, they might have had the same taste for all we know. But I just thought it was a really lovely touch.
I'm clearly nowhere near the superior royal watcher that you are. I would never have recognised that from so long ago, that coat. That's incredible.
You do tend to kind of spot these things.
Yeah.
And she, you know, and Princess Anne does tend to wear the same things again and again and again. But that's what we love about her. And, yeah, because she can still fit into things she was wearing, you know, 30, 40 years ago. And, you know, myself included, there's not a lot of us that can say that.
There was another striking scene when Anne arrived for that job, was she got out of the car and put up her own umbrella. And you do not see that very often with royals. The King, the late Queen, princes and princesses normally have an umbrella proffered for them to stand underneath.
100%, yeah, that's a good point.
That is Anne.
Yeah.
Is it Anne that she's so humble and wants to do that, or is it Anne thinking, I don't trust anybody else to put up this bloody umbrella correctly?
It's not neither really. I'm sorry, but she's a no-nonsense kind of person, and really she would like everyone else to be like that too.
Yeah.
She just wants to get on with it.
Queen Camilla has been winning more plaudits for her fashion choices as she gets into her new role as the King's consort. Rebecca has spent a lot of time covering Her Majesty and gave us her thoughts.
I think when it comes to Queen Camilla, she knows what suits her, and she's kind of gathered a small group of designer, Fiona Clare, Anna Valentine, you know, Mr. Roy, people like that, and they know what suits her, and she likes to feel comfortable in what she likes to look good, but she's not obsessed by fashion, but she likes to feel comfortable in it. But, you know, they do a really good job with her. Every now and again she breaks out. Do you remember that Anna Valentine trouser suit she wore?
There's been 2 jumpsuits.
Well,
Two.
you would spot that even more than I would, Jo. You know, she does break out.
I was saying on another show this morning, I think that might be the first British Queen in history to rock a jumpsuit.
Probably is.
Apart from Queen Elizabeth, you know, during her work as a mechanic in wartime.
I stand corrected. You're very right.
Stato here.
Yeah.
That was more of a boiler suit than
not a fashion statement.
Not a very elegant one. Yeah.
Oh, I think no, but I think you know, she doesn't set out to be what she's not. I think, you know, but she likes to look good, feel comfortable, and I think, you know, there's an elegance about it.
After being criticised by some for their outfits over the years, there was an accolade for one of the York sisters. Richard Eden explains.
Princess Beatrice has been named by Society magazine Tatler as the best dressed person in Britain.
Wow.
Now, obviously, this is quite amusing given that she was criticised so much in the past. Our viewers will remember the famous pretzel hat.
Were they ever going to be able to live those hats down, those poor princesses?
It was great, and she made the best of it by auctioning it off eventually for charity, I think. But it was the hat she wore to Prince William and Catherine's wedding back in 2011. Anyway, so they've highlighted that she has become very stylish, and we've discussed that on this programme before. I've noted in my diary column that she's been helped by taking on a stylist, Olivia Buckingham, and she's kind of given her some different options. But frankly, I'd rather hear your views on this, Jo. What do you think about her change in style?
I think she's looking incredibly chic. I really do. Best dressed in the whole country? I don't know.
There was one occasion where she and her husband Edo attended that wedding in Jordan, and she wore a couple of outfits that were really striking.
And very culturally appropriate for the event. Yeah, no, she really, and she's looking fantastic. There's just no doubt about it. And
maybe it's the Edo effect.
Well, she's the one royal I've met on a number of occasions, and she's utterly charming as well. So, I say, good on you, Bea.
Well, here's a fascinating look we did at the comparison between the style choices of Catherine, Princess of Wales, and the late Diana, Princess of Wales.
Claire Gisotti pulled together the ways that the royals alter their outfits for both recycling and modesty reasons, and how Catherine has followed the late Princess Diana in this regard. So, Natasha, one that really stands out is the Jenny Packham Goldfinger dress that Catherine wore to a James Bond premiere.
Yeah, so this was back in 2021. It was a classic red carpet event, and it was gold and sequined, and it had really sort of fixed, firm shoulders, but sort of draped kind of down the arms, and it glittered in all the photos, and she just really looked like, a sort of Hollywood star. But it was made to be a bit more demure for the Princess of Wales, so the kind of neckline hem was raised a bit, just to kind of, make it a bit more elegant than maybe your average sort of Bond girl. But that looked really great.
And Charlotte, it was a similar story with an Elie Saab dress that she wore to another royal wedding.
Yeah, she wore this incredible Elie Saab dress, and although it was high neck and long sleeves, which in theory is quite modest, it was meant to have these kind of transparent panels and sort of slits down the legs, especially down the front. And on the catwalks it looked incredible, but it would have looked a bit out of place for the Princess of Wales. So she just had it altered to cover up those bits and made it look, it looked stunning actually.
Smart. Now, Natasha, it seems that Diana was also fond of an outfit alteration.
Yeah, well, we know that Princess Diana was really bold with her fashion choices over the years, that ranged from kind of casual to the red carpet looks. But there was one particular dress that was mentioned in this article. I think she wore it to an event in Qatar around in the 1980s, 1984, and it had quite long sleeves, and it was, again, much more sort of covered in that sense. And then 2 years later, I think at an event in Cameroon, she just got rid of the sleeves, and it looked, totally different. But recycling in a way that's, very popular these days.
Now, we might expect our royal family to wear expensive designer clothes, but in recent years it's become increasingly fashionable to also include some so-called high street items into their wardrobes.
The Mail on Live's Royals page has pulled together some of the times the royals have dressed elegantly, but for a lot less than you might think. Natasha, tell us what caught your eye here.
Well, there were pictures of the Princess of Wales wearing the Veja trainers, which we talked about last week when Prince William wore them, so they're obviously a favourite. Charlotte, you said you're a fan, so clearly you're in line with all the royals. Me&M, which the Duchess of Edinburgh has worn, that was a brand, and that's kind of very popular, isn't it? And Meghan Markle, dare I say, wearing Monica Vinader, which I'm also a fan of, because I'm wearing it right now. So.
Great British brand.
So there we go. Great jewellery.
We love Monica. Yes, Me&M is one of those labels that may as well just take any money I earn and just take it without having the middle woman of me. Exactly. Yeah,
Me&M.
We love them, but we are used to hearing about Catherine's great style, aren't we? After all these years, but Beatrice is holding her own these days. She's becoming more and more of a style icon.
Yes, Beatrice just won Tatler's Best Dressed Person. I'm not just royal, person. And I have to say, when I first started doing this job, I never thought I'd see that day come, because she dressed, unfortunately, not very well for a long time.
It was a fascinator, wasn't it? That
she
wore.
I feel like,
the pretzel, the famous pretzel.
She's just haunted by that one hat when actually she's fine. She always looks great.
Yeah, well, she's got Olivia Buckingham as her stylist now, and she's now gone up a level. You're right to say the pretzel, it was a bit of a one-off, but she never dressed amazingly, whereas now she's just amazing. She looks so glamorous. She's found the perfect silhouette for her figure, and actually she was out at Nikki Hilton's dress launch this week, and you can't tell she's pregnant, by the way. She still looks incredibly svelte. She looks great. She's in a little black dress, and she's really coming into her own, I think.
We love to hear it. Now, Richard, we don't always drag you into our fashion chats, but did anything grab you from this story?
What occurs to me, it is very difficult how to dress when you're a member of the royal family. Do you go sort of upmarket, or do you go to sort of high street labels and things? There was I've written a piece about Meghan for Mail Plus today, and actually there was one incident there where she visited a school in Harlem, New York, where there were lots of deprived children. I think about 90% were on free school meals. And she turned up in the most expensive outfit you can imagine. These stilettos and the whole thing cost thousands. And lots of people at the time thought it seemed inappropriate. So it just highlighted for me how difficult it is and how much thought you actually have to put in before an engagement as to what you wear.
Exactly. And I think, the thing is, particularly the British High Street, we know, is brilliant for shopping. So it is possible to dress well without dripping in money.
They're really good, the royal family, at finding Zara jackets that look like they're Chanel.
Yeah.
And Beatrice wore one recently that's kind of got round buttons. So you can look, if you are royal, you can look seriously regal in a high street jacket, because you are royal.
Prince William's evolving style, in particular his wearing of trainers or sneakers with a jacket and jeans or trousers, was the subject of lots of discussion in the press. Natasha Livingston and Victoria Murphy explain.
They've worn very similar outfits. When the Princess of Wales, when she was going out on more engagements, that was an outfit, a look she used to pull together quite regularly, sometimes with jeans, sometimes it would be a kind of full suit. But yeah, those white trainers, she was definitely the first to wear them. So yeah, William's a copycat.
And what do you think, Victoria, do you think this is, as the article also says, that, now that William can relax a little bit more about the state of health for his father and his wife, that he's able to sort of exude a more relaxed persona publicly? Is there anything in that?
Maybe. I don't know how much that you can directly attribute his fashion journey to that. I feel like his kind of style evolution has been quite a long evolution that's had a few different twists and turns. But I definitely think it's true that now I think we're seeing him looking quite relaxed on official engagements.
But he definitely looks more modern. He doesn't look like more of the staid royal that he was, I think without the beard, really.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And I mean, I think that the younger generation, we call them the younger generation, they're obviously 40 now, they had, which I think is still very young.
From where I'm sitting.
They do always like to be very approachable and very relaxed, and we've always seen them kind of dress in a manner that's appropriate for who they're seeing. So if they're meeting young people, for example, they would never wear particularly formal outfits because they want people to feel relaxed, they want to fit in with the setting that they're in.
To royal fashion of a slightly different kind, our panel spotted that Prince William had chosen to not wear an ancient traditional outfit for a special event at Buckingham Palace. Here's what they had to say.
All of the diplomats, the ambassadors, the high commissioners that are accredited to the UK are still accredited to the Court of St James, which used to be the official leading royal palace, even though it's now the seat of power is Buckingham Palace. So that every year they have this white tie reception, which is the most glittering and the biggest reception that Buckingham Palace hold each year. And the dress code is either national dress, white tie, or what's known as court dress. And court dress involves traditional breeches, the garter, the Order of the Garter worn around the knee-high socks, and King Charles was resplendent in it.
He did look very, very glam, I must say. Richard, appears that William, however, we know he's not such a fan of these more traditional costumes. Was he wearing it?
No, so William was at the event, but he opted for white tie, but then just with regular trousers. So bit of a disappointment, really. It would be great to see him in those silk stockings and breeches. And it's a very interesting question because he has worn them before. I think it's back in 2016 he wore them, and Catherine was there with him on that occasion. And I have to say, in the pictures I've seen, he did look a bit uncomfortable. And I think we need, I love all that sort of, I think it's a sort of essential part of royalty is the dressing up and everything. But I think Catherine loves it too. You can always see her sort of teasing and giggling him, particularly when it's the Order of the Garter ceremony where he has to wear all the velvet robes and the feathers. That's always fun. So I think it needs to be made clear to him that, if he isn't going to be king, he's got to get those breeches on.
Yeah, we love the pomp and ceremony, and Charlotte, he did wear them when the late Queen asked him to.
Yeah, as Richard says, in 2016, I think that's the last time I can remember seeing him in tights and shiny shoes. But, of course he would never say no to the Queen. She is, the monarchy was all about tradition under her, but things have to move on, and when he's the king one day, I honestly think, having grown up with William all my life, I just can't imagine him walking around in tights and shiny shoes. It's just crazy. And this is a guy that doesn't wear a kilt even. And he looks very uncomfortable when he does wear this traditional stuff. Even now, he still wears the big feathery plume. and you can just see him sort of rolling his eyes almost. It's because he's a modern man. It's a modern monarchy, and he shouldn't be wearing tights at the age of 43 or whatever he is.
Do you think it doesn't fit in with his brand?
It doesn't fit in with his brand. I mean, we saw him in South Africa wearing a really cool natty jacket and trainers. So can you imagine seeing him 1 minute in that and then the next minute in a pair of adult tights with, a sort of garter around his knee? I think you have to be one or the other when you're the young arm of the monarchy, and I'm in support of that.
But that's the point, the royalty should be different. They should be distinguished by their silk stockings and breeches. It's part of the fun, the pageantry. If they just look like any other diplomat at the reception, to me it's not quite the same.
At her annual carol service, Catherine, Princess of Wales, showed how she was a dab hand at upgrading her old outfits with a cheap bow. Charlotte Griffiths explains.
So she wore a beautiful red Alexander McQueen Sarah Burton coat, which probably cost a fortune and is a few years old. But then she reimagined it with a very cheap, dare I say, £20 bow from Jigsaw, where she used to work. And it goes to show that's all it costs, really, £20. And you've got like a brand new outfit. So I was quite impressed with Kate. She stuck the bow on, looked like a whole new coat.
Some eagle eyes at the Mail Online's Royals page spotted that the Princess of Wales might have been inspired by a certain senior royal.
Even though, as we were saying recently, I think they have made an effort, Kensington Palace and Catherine in particular, to be more casual. When she's on formal engagements, her dressing is very traditional and kind of like the late Queen, in that I think the term is monochromatic dressing. So it's kind of from head to toe, one often quite bold colour. Often she wears a lot of burgundy. I think it was at the Korean state visit last year. It was like a really vibrant red colour. She had a really big hat.
And it's everything. It's hat, the shoes, it's the bag.
All the way down, And the late Queen used to do that, and I think it's a way of being memorable and looking great in photos. And that's something that she has done and, continues to do. And it's clearly, she definitely does well in the papers. So.
And it definitely, she's always been a fabulously stylish dresser, Rebecca, but that does seem to be a new point of, she's really making a point of being monochromatic.
Yeah, because I think in the early days we would see a lot more patterns and things like that. But I think as you develop and she's not obsessed by the way she appears in newspapers or online, but you'll always take lessons from it and work out what works for you. And she knows what works for her now.
Any favourites here in this?
Well, I have to say the
gallery?
one that Natasha mentioned for me, the when she greeted the South Korean leader for the state visit, I was going to say last year, but it was the year before, 2023, in the red outfit with the hat and the kind of the cape style coat. I thought she looked absolute knockout there.
Well, I always used to love it when our much missed Queen wore yellow, and I really like the yellow that we've seen. I can't remember, I think it was an Easter celebration.
Yes, actually it's quite an Easter colour for her. I mean, obviously she famously said, as a member of the royal family, particularly as a monarch, you have to be seen to be believed. And she was a very diminutive woman. She was tiny, but you wouldn't actually know that because she was so large in stature and in presence, and that was in part to how she dressed.
Well, what you call monochromatic dressing, I call human highlighter chic. no one's really picked up on that. I think we should run with it, make it a thing for Catherine. Lots of you love seeing the Wales family out as a team, and many have spotted just how coordinated they often are. We took a closer look at that.
It has occurred to me, and actually it particularly occurred to me at Christmas, because it wasn't just William or Catherine and Charlotte, as you'll often see. It was the whole family. So Catherine was wearing kind of a dark coloured coat with a blue and green tartan scarf. Charlotte had a tartan coat on. Even George and Louis had matching blue and green ties, and William had a blue tie as well. And I think it kind of projects like you say, a feeling of unity and a feeling that they are all as one. And I don't think she overdoes it, which I think is great. I mean, I think if they were wearing matching dresses, it could look a little bit twee. But I think complementing the outfits is okay.
Do you think it's possible that for any given photo opportunity could be the Christmas card that year, if they've just all sort of like matchy, that just increases your odds of that, maybe?
Well, do you remember years ago? that when the Duke and Duchess of York were working royals, they would always
No.
they would always dress Beatrice and Eugenie the same, in the same outfits. I have to say, I'm not personally a big fan of that.
I like that. I thought that was sweet. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know. There wasn't so much for me. But
Do you and your family coordinate, Charlotte?
I can never get my kids to match outfits. I'm dying to go to Trotters, and I think Catherine does shop at Trotters. You have to look it up because the outfit's just perfect. Trotters. I'm dying to get my kids to be in matching Trotters. I don't have the same control over my family that Catherine does. My husband would never wear a tie I'd asked him to wear. Just would refuse.
I think as a father, I'd struggle to get my daughters to wear anything I chose.
Does any of the children's outfits leap out at you?
I did like the tartan thing, and it was really subtly done. And I love the fact that their little ties matched up, the boys' ties matched up. I thought it was really sweet. But she does have that classic English look. It's so timeless. And I think that's really clever, because if there was a Christmas card, it won't age too badly in the years to come.
Well, speaking of, I mean, Richard, the children always look smart, but they certainly look more relaxed than if you can remember what Princes Harry and William used to look like back in the day.
I don't know. I think William and Catherine, they make a point of dressing the children in a very traditional, regal way, I would say, which is quite unusual these days. But then, as you say, with William and Harry, when they were boys, it was even more formal. I remember seeing one photograph of they're on holiday in Balmoral, and they were both wearing shirt and ties.
Right.
So, which, to be fair, I'm sure was because they knew there was a photo call that day. But it did give quite an unusual kind of holiday vibe.
The thing I remember is the sailor suits. Remember little boys' sailor suits with the little breeches and the collar?
Oh,
that was just the 80s.
Great.
I had that. I'm the same age as Harry. I used to wear those little sailor suits in the 80s.
Yeah, and that's that royal tradition of sailor suits.
Yeah, but I just think it's so funny when they make the children wear those brass double-breasted blazers with little brass buttons, like they're tiny 80-year-olds. It's such a funny look. I think Louis done that once or twice.
Oh.
But I think we know, and when we see that kind of the lovely footage and the photographs in private, the minute they get away, the T-shirts are on the shorts, the kicked out old trainers. So at home they live, very normal lives and wear very normal clothes you'd expect of children of their age.
Now, we know how much you all love Sophie, Super Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and as the wife of Princess Edward turned 60, we looked closer not only at her work and growing importance in the family, but also her on-point fashion choices.
I think her style's really evolved, and you can see she's got more and more confidence. She wears some great Susanna outfits. I actually like her ascot outfits best. I think she's following in the kind of Queen Elizabeth and actually Queen Camilla's kind of talent in having a knack for wearing a good hat, and she's become more confident. I remember actually when she got engaged to Prince Edward, she wore, I'm not going to pronounce it, Thomas Starkowski?
Swarovski,
something like that. As her engagement outfit, and that was not the biggest hits because it was considered a bit big for her and a bit shapeless, and she wore very much a kind of middle-class working girl uniform, but she's really developed that style.
Just cannot imagine anything worse than trying to choose an outfit for that announcement. Can you just imagine, especially if you're not used to that whole glare?
And it was huge at the time, one of the Queen, the last of the Queen's remaining children to get married was a big deal. But I think she's really nailing it now, and I think, as I said in my piece the other day, there's a confidence about her personally, and as one of her friends, Lord Mountbatten, said to me, I think that shines out of her, and that extends to just the way she looks.
It's poise, isn't it?
And don't forget, and I make the point in the piece, she does her own hair and makeup herself, so there's not a big team of, people with hair dryers and makeup brushes and stylists. I'm sure she receives, help from some official stylists, but it's very much her own look as well.
I mean, it is, Richard, isn't it? Another area where she just doesn't seem to put her foot wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert on these things.
Come now, don't sell yourself short.
Don't be so modest.
But I would say it seems to me that, it's another area where she sort of doesn't put her foot wrong. But anyway, what about you? You know more about these things than me.
Yeah, I like it when she's getting a bit more edgy, like pushing the envelope. Like my favourite is that leather kind of pinafore dress.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that was quite out there, wasn't it?
And I think that was over a me and M blouse, which we all know is one of mine and Princess of Wales's favourite. So yeah, I just think she's looking great. And there's also, was it a race outfit? It was the green jacket over the white skirt. I like it when she just is slightly more, gets out of her
floral midi dresses.
Yeah, and she's got a lot less matchy-matchy, and
Yeah.
she's quite good at coordinating stuff, I think, and
Yeah.
in a very kind of random but really good way.
To a vintage montage now, and in 2022, Catherine, who was then Duchess of Cambridge, was named the best dressed person by Tatler magazine. Well, that was fun. A reminder to let us know your thoughts in the comments below and maybe even tell us whose outfits you would like us to discuss. Just a quick reminder to like this video, please, and subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel for more great royal videos, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.